folks, welcome to the video, and I would love to have you along for the continuation of this blight hauler that we're doing in this new way of filming. I hope you enjoy the way that it is. Don't forget, if you do like the video, feel free to give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. But without further ado, let's have a look at the model in what we're going to be aiming for at the end of this video, and also having a look at the paints that we're going to use. So this is what we're aiming for at the end of this video, and this is how we're going to go. And to get there, we are using Balthazar Gold, a dry paint Golden Griffin. We need some Reikland Flesh Shade, Lead Belcher, Nuln Oil, a dry paint Necron Compound, and everyone's favourite Agrax Earthshade. So, I hope you enjoy this video. Feel free to throw your comments in the comment section below, but without further ado, let's get cracking on with it. Alright, so let's get cracking on then. So we start off with the Balthazar Gold, and we are going to start adding a little bit of colour to this model, and this is pretty much going to be going along all of the trim, anything that's remotely decorative about this model. This is where they go. Now we do need to be careful that we don't get any of this color on any of the green bits that we've now pretty much finished. Okay, so we just need to gradually, nice and carefully, paint all this on, and this will be going along, like I said, the decorative bits like this, and also along the trim, such as around here, around there of course, along the top of these bits, and along all of the spiky bits along the top. Right, so let's just speed through this bit nice and quickly. Okay, now if you haven't already seen the building of this model, I would suggest go and do that now, which is right there. But if you have already seen it, you know that this model isn't actually glued together. So as long as I'm careful, I can, with a little bit of persuasion, we can pull off the model off of the base here. And you may have noticed that as I was painting this, I didn't actually manage to paint underneath, right down in the corner here, where these oval bits come right down into the model here. It's almost impossible to get my paintbrush down there. So as long as I'm careful, and this is, I'm recording and talking at the same time, so if this goes wrong, you'll find out at the same time I do. We just want to prise off this front bit. Can we get it off, or am I just going to have to leave it? So this is almost like a product test at the same time as a painting video. We want to see if we can get that front off of here without damaging too much of the paintwork. There we go, lovely. Alright, yeah, that's why it was stuck. There's a bit of the old wash got sunk into there. Alright. And then this bit was also, I believe actually we might be able to, no, we can't take those off, can we? Because those are connected. But the bit with the horny bits, there we go. Right, so now I've pulled that off here. So now I can get down into here much easier. There we go, just like that. And the joy of these push fit models, now I don't want to keep doing that. You don't want to keep pulling it apart. What it does do is, now you could almost leave this apart actually while you're painting it in these three bits, certainly for now. Now getting down into here is going to be very difficult anyway, because of the way that it's constructed. I don't think I'm going to get my brush right the way in there anyway, but I can get my brush in at an angle that was previously impossible to do due to the way that the model's constructed. But I'm pretty happy with that. I've done the back there as well, so there we go. So I'm quite happy with that. And then what I need to do now is move on to the next part of this. I think you saw me messing around a little bit, going back over a few different bits and pieces, just making sure that I had covered all of it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the dry paint, which is Golden Griffin. And all we're going to do with this is we're going to grab ourselves a reasonably, medium kind of dry brush size sort of thing. I don't actually have currently any of the GW ones, so I don't know how big this is in terms of the Citadel ones. So I'm just going to say it's a reasonably medium sized brush. And what I'm going to do is I've got the Golden Griffin, and I'm just going to catch along these brass areas that I've just painted. Now this is dry. You might want to leave it 5 minutes or so before you do this bit if you're copying me as you're going along. If any of this paint is still wet, you're just going to catch wet paint into your dry paint, and just generally it's just going to make a mess. So I'm going to go along doing this. If you're following along, just make sure your brass is definitely dry before you start doing this bit. Alright. And there we go. I'm quite happy with that now. And so just before I put the model down, ready for a drying period, I should say, we're going to pop in with some Reikland Flesh Shade. Alright, and then let's pop the lid back on that, and then all we need to do is, with the Reikland Flesh Shade, is over all of these brass details, we're just going to wash them nice and simply, nice and carefully, not to get this all over the green, but and we don't want massive puddles of this stuff, but you don't need to be overly cautious. It's not like we're pin washing. We're doing this all over the entire surface of the brass, and so we're going to get that done there. There we go. Got a little rough around the top here, but I think we can, that'll be alright. Once we've finished the model, I'm not really sure that's really going to stand out. But there we go. So that's the wash done on the model here. We're going to leave that for a minute before we carry on, because otherwise I'm going to start sticking my fingers in it. So we'll leave that for a few minutes to dry, and then we'll move on to the next bit. All right. All right. So that's had plenty of time to dry. It's not completely dry yet, but that's okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to some metallic parts. Now, we're going to be using lead belcher. I say metallic parts, I mean the brass is metallic, but this is the lead belcher. Now, before we do, there is some of this stuff, like in here, that is going to have metallic bits in, but it's also surrounded by flesh, and we need to think about that if we're going to, you know, try and paint in the best order as we can. So this will wait until the fleshy bits are done, and then we'll come back and do some metallics here. Likewise with the more on the front here. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to do much more of this metal stuff that's going around here, and some of the other details as we go along. Again, some of this flesh. Also, you might notice I missed some of the banding here that will also be brass, but again later on, because this fleshy bits will probably need to be done before that. So there is a bit of swapping and changing the colours, but for now we're just going to block in some of these more harder metallic areas. So we're going to grab a reasonably wide flat brush, and we just start adding that to the areas. Alright, so as you may have seen, if I bring this up, I've definitely got some silver all over some of the fleshy bits. That's perfectly fine. We're going to be painting over those, but that's most of the larger areas of lead belcher done. But there are a few that I do want to do as well, but they're so close to the green that I don't want to ruin them. And paint silver all over the green, so I will come back in with a smaller brush now and pick out some of these finer details. There we go. I think I'm happy with that. Like I said, I'm going to leave some of these other details, such as these and the banding here, and there are, you know, some other details that I'll pick out later. I do want to pick these out actually, these grills, because they're on a red bit, on a green bit. Basically, I'm looking for any of the metallics that are not like integrated into the fleshy parts of the model. Otherwise it'll just make life more difficult when I'm painting things like flesh. This could do with being a bit cleaner as well actually. There we go. I forgot to go right up into there, and also behind there. I hope you're liking this way of filming. As you can see, it allows me to be much more fluid in what I'm doing. I can change my mind without it looking a bit strange on the video. So I hope you're enjoying it. Don't forget to leave a comment below if you have any suggestions or any comments to make about the videos. All I ask is that you keep them constructive. But there we go. It looks like that should be about all of it. If needs be, we can come back in, and while I'm here, there was some more brass that I needed to do, but I wanted to do it before, after I did the rest of the brass, which is this, because I'm going to be highlighting, I'm going to be shading this and highlighting it slightly different than I did with the decorative parts, because this is a working part and not necessarily a decorative one. So I'm going to cover this in brass. It's going to be a similar colour but not quite the same, which is why I'm doing it now. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I have to make sure this is completely dry, because the next step is to wash it, and I need to make sure that all of those metallics are very, very dry, otherwise it's going to go a little bit funky. So we're going to leave it there, and with editing I'll be back in literally a second. Just like that. And there we go. Right, so we're going to pop on some Necron oil, and I'm going to use this moppy type brush for the most of it, and then possibly a smaller brush as well when we've done. Let's keep that open, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm going to load the brush up, use the lid as a palette, which is handy for washing. Scrape some of it off, there we go. And we're just going to mop this over the metallic parts that we've just done, and just let that run onto there. Anybody, like I said in the past, if you've seen the How to Paint a Death Guard model, you'll know, again, this is not the only wash that the metallic parts get, which we will get to hopefully at the end of this video. We'll see how long this video takes, but for now, anything that I've just painted just now, the metallic bits, we're gonna cover in Necron oil. Alright. And this here is why I painted this separately to the rest of it. Is unlike painting or shading the decorative bit with Reikland Flesh Shade, I'm going to be shading this with the Necron oil like that. Alright, so hopefully now you understand why I did that in two separate parts rather than doing it at the same time. And there we are. Alright, I'm happy with that. I do like to try and leave very few times where I just have to let the model dry, and unfortunately this is one of those times where I can't really avoid it, because we're not quite finished with that bit yet before we move on to the next bit. So cue the swipe. Alright, so we've pretty much just got 2 steps left to go with this video, and the first one we're going to do is come in with the Necron Compound, and we are going to start doing a little bit of highlighting on all of the metallics that we've done so far on this model. Some of it heavier than others, so, and when I say heavier, I mean it's not that there's going to be more paint on the brush, it's just a case of whether I go over it very often. So the first thing is, the heavier parts is going to be obviously the these bits here, the tracks. So we're going to come in, we're going to highlight those up with the Necron Compound, going against the grain as always when dry brushing, and we're going to pick out those highlights. I'm not going to go crazy high with the highlights, I'm not being particularly clean, but I think you can see that that brightens that back up a little bit from where it was. And we're going to come in with this side as well, and obviously being careful, because this is a bit loose once the once those front panels come off of this thing, and especially it's not considered because it's not connected to the base either. So we'll just throw the Necron Compound along there, and we're also going to come in with all of these the bits at the bottom here. And we're coming in from here. We got a little bit of wet wash there, so I just need to be a little bit careful. This has been drying for about an hour and it's still not dry, you see. So you'll be surprised if you put a lot of wash on somewhere. You'll be surprised how long it takes for that wash to dry. So just be careful and make absolutely sure it's dry. Otherwise, when you do this sort of stuff, it's gonna kind of, you just make a mess of everything. Alright, so then what happens next is we're coming along. There's a little bit here. We just want to be nice and careful with that. And then we want to go along here as well. All of these silver metallic parts coming in there. I'm not too fussed about catching the edges of the green. We're not too worried about that. But we're going along all of these metallic bits like that. What we also want to do is catch this as well. So we're just brightening that up a little bit. We've got something that we're going to be doing with that later on in the painting. And we're just going to catch that. And then what I want to do is very, very lightly just catch some of these edges here from the top, just very, very lightly. Just catch some of those with the Necron Compound as well. It's a very quick and dirty way of highlighting those, but quite frankly, it's a Nurgle model, and it's going to be a quick and dirty kind of model. So we also want to come back into all of these here, and just quickly just throw some Necron Compound along some of those bits and pieces here and there. Some of it's going onto the green, which, yeah, if you wanted to be a bit more careful than I am being, then it would suit, because you know, I am getting a few scrapes of silver along the green, which some people won't like. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with it, so I'm just going to leave it and carry on. But that's it done. So then what we're going to do is we now need to actually put this model back together again. You don't have to if it's not the way you want to paint, but it's getting ready for the next step. And as always, we need to make sure that we don't go putting too much pressure on this thing. So we're putting it back together the same way we did in the build video, just finding all of those bits, getting them to catch, and then with some nice even pressure just push it together like that. And I'm then going to put it back onto the base. That gives me something to hold on to, because the next bit is going to be quite messy. Once I can locate those holes, there we go, push it onto the base like so. There we go, that model's back together again. And then finally, let's put the lid on the Necron Compound. Thank you very much. That tab's caught. There we go. Put that there. And then, that's in the wrong order, but we're going to grab Agrax Earthshade. So this will be the final step of this video. And nice and quickly, let's pop that there. We are going to literally cover everything. Well, with the exception of maybe the fleshy bits, because there's no point in wasting the wash. But basically we're just going to cover the entire model, everything we've just done. We're just going to cover it all with another coat of Agrax Earthshade. Alright, so I'll get this done and then come back to you in just a minute. And there we go. Alright, so we're covering him in wash. He's looking nice and grimy and grungy. Just be careful as it's drying, sorry. Just be careful of those puddles. So don't let them pull. You still don't want puddles of wash all over the place. So as it's drying, just keep an eye on it. If you need to, just mop them up. Try not to move it around too much as it's drying, because otherwise you start lifting the wash up. You know, when it's half dry, it starts going a little gunky, and then when you wash the brush over it, it will peel off a bit and it will look terrible. So just for now, you know, keep an eye on the pooling. Just soak it up if it happens like that. But other than that, leave that to dry, and I will invoke my video editing superpower now. And there we have it. Right, I'm gonna leave that there. I mean, if I move this around, there are some deep areas of wash still not completely dry, So I'm going to leave it here definitely for now. I'm probably going to put this on a shelf overnight. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the way this is turning out. This is a nice, this is pretty much all of the armor finished. We'll be moving on to things like the flesh at the back here, which is going to take some time to get that in there right. And then we'll get on with some final details. But other than that, I hope you've enjoyed this one. That's been a bunch of fun. As always, feel free to throw some comments about your thoughts and opinions about how this video is going, how this kind of way of filming it is going. But also in general, just throw in your comments about what you want to see in the future and what you think about what you're seeing now and so on. And don't forget to like it if you've liked it. There we go, get me into shot there. And don't forget, obviously, all my links to my social media and so on are down there. And if you want to help support the channel, then the link for Patreon is down there as well. But obviously do that at your leisure. And that just leaves me to say thank you for watching this one. I'll catch you in the next one, right? Dara.